Good morning, afternoon, evening, everybody. How's it going? I thought to show my NFL power rankings of the season, which starts on Thursday. Um, this is a quick. This is every team ranked 32 to one. Most people already know how this works. So let's get started. At number 32, I have the Arizona Cardinals. Um, I think that it's pretty obvious that by far the worst quarterback situation in the entire league. I mean, Kyler Murray's injured. Just released Colt McCoy, which I don't get. So they're either running with Josh Dobbs or Clayton Tune, which both sound like recipe for disaster. I don't like what I think from Arizona. Moving on to 31. Also, Arizona traded away Isaiah Simmons, which I also think was a bad move. Anyway, 31, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Another pretty obvious one. I mean, Tom Brady retired last offseason. Even with Brady, they went 8-9. Um, Defense still has pieces, but I'm especially worried about their offense and their coaching. I mean, it sounds like Mike Evans is going to get traded. I don't know if Chris Godwin and Russell Gage are healthy. And once again, well, the defensive pieces like Lavonte David and Vita Vea, their offense is going to have to do a lot of work. Also, defensive lose Sean Murphy Bunting this offseason. Anyway, 30, we got the Indianapolis Colts. This is another team that is really unsure where to place because similar to Tampa Bay, they have pieces on defense, but their offense looks like a complete disaster right now. I mean, offensive line got absolutely blasted in preseason. Anthony Richardson could be good, but I really don't trust him with that O line and that receiving core. If they want him to be their next Andrew Luck, they need him to be healthy. Um, and in order for him to be healthy, they need pieces around him. And once again, Jonathan Taylor's holding out. They have meth wide receivers outside of Pittman, and their O line looks to be rusty. At number 29, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. This might come as a surprise, but I don't like the Raiders season. I think Josh McDaniels is a horrible head coach. I think Jimmy G is a mediocre quarterback at best. I don't trust any of their wide receivers outside Davante Adams. And they lost uh and they lost Derek Carr and Darren Waller to the Saints and Giants respectively. So and also their defense was awful last year and I don't see them improving this year. And they did take a defensive end in the first round, and they have Max Crosby. So maybe their pass rush will be good, but secondary, I don't trust. At number 28, we have the Houston Texans. This is pretty obvious. Um, I was thinking about playing them behind the Raiders, but I thought about it, and the Texans honestly have the better O line, and obviously don't have the better receiving core, but they could have the better quarterback. Although CJ Stroud did not look good last preseason, and yeah, I don't I don't trust their defense, even if they just drafted Will Anderson, which could be good, but we need to see more out of that team. At number 27, we got the Carolina Panthers. Um, Another team going into this year's rookie quarterback that don't 100% trust. I think Frank Wright could be a good head coach because he has a quarterback that he can develop properly. And I think he should be a big upgrade over Matt Rhule, which was a complete disaster. And they have pieces, but they lost guys like DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey. Not only at the trade line, but they lost DJ Moore to Chicago to get Bryce Young. and they that's another thing that could be good, but we need to see more of them, similar to Washington in a similar situation. I mean, Sam Howell could be a good quarterback. They have decent what they have a great receiving core, I do think, with not only Terry McLaurin, but I think John Dotson's pretty good, and they have Curtis Samuel, a decent slot option. So they got pieces at wide receiver. As I said before, I think Sam Howell has a chance to be really good, but I think I think he has a chance to be really bad as well. So we'll see on that front. Washington's tight ends. They got Logan Thomas, who I think might who could stay healthy this year, and he could make an impact if he stays healthy. That they have a decent running back core. O line could use some improvements. I think O line's definitely their weakest link on the offense, and then their defense looks to be pretty solid. Not only with a front seven, there's a good front seven, but I think Emmanuel Forbes will be a pretty good cornerback this year for them. At number 27, we got to 25. We got to New England Patriots. I think this is coming from a mile away. Sorry, Patriots fans, but you guys just aren't good this year. Mac Jones, I think Mac Jones is going to be pretty bad this year. I don't like any of their wide receivers. I think Juju's the number two at best, but he's getting paid like a one, which I don't think makes sense at all. And I got decent wide receivers. No, they don't have good wide receivers actually, but and they don't have a good O line. I think that offense is looking to be pretty bad. I think they have a good run game, pretty much with Ezekiel Elliott and Ramondre Stevenson. That might be a plus side, but other than that, no. Washington. No, all right, talk about Washington. Let's move on to Green Bay. Uh, Green Bay is another interesting team. I don't think they have great wide receivers. This is another year where they should take a wide receiver, and yet they took a defensive end, which makes no sense. Is yes, Brenton Smith is aging, and you have a question mark with whether Rashawn Gary is getting a contract extension or not. Eh. But no, I think Lucas Van Ness was the wrong choice. I think they should have gone to either JSN or Addison. And yeah, Packers. Still like what that I see from their offense. Defense could be good, but their offense is more of a question mark. I think Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon both could have good seasons, especially if they go run heavy this year. But I don't like their wide receiver core at all. And I do think Matt LaFleur is slightly overrated as a coach. He's definitely an improvement over McCarthy, but he's not fantastic as a coach either. At number 23, we got the Rams. This is their team that could have a decent offense. I do think Stafford and Kupp is a great quarterback receiver combo, even if Kupp is currently in Minnesota rehabbing, which I think is kind of concerning if your top receiver is currently rehabbing away from the team. Um, and I'm curious to see how their receiving core does this year. But their biggest problem is their defense. Because besides Aaron Donald, everybody else is gone. Boyd is gone, Wagner gone, Ramsey gone. I I think their defense could see a bit of a downturn this year, and that'll be their biggest weakness. At number 22, got the Atlanta Falcons. There's another team that I could see rising up in the ranks. Honestly, if there's any team to compete with the Saints for the division, it's Atlanta. And that's mainly because if Ritter shows development, and I do think he'll be pretty decent this year. If he shows development and they have decent and they have a decent run game, and then that could be a pretty big change up for them. And then on defense, that's where all their defensive free agent pickups end up going. And guys like Calais Campbell, Jesse Bates, and Jeff Okuda. which all three could be a decent impact this year for them, for sure. At number 21, we got the Chicago Bears. Fields is, I'm gonna get blamed for Bear fans for saying this, but I don't trust Fields yet. Yes, he's shown progress. Yes, he's done decent. Yes, he can make good highlight reel plays every once in a while, but can he do it consistently? And that's a problem with Fields. Is that I want to see him do it consistently. I don't want to see a game where he has one good play that goes for 50 yards, and yet to have a 100-yard day is all the others were either screen passes that go for 4 or 5 yards or dump offs that go for nothing more than a small gain. And so I want to see more from Fields. I'm curious to see what DJ Moore does this year. I really like DJ Moore. I thought he had a pretty good year with pretty good career with Carolina. I do think that'll be pretty good for them to have both Fields and Moore together in the offense. I wonder how they're going to do at tight end. I mean, they have Tanyan and Komet, so that'll be interesting. And then their defense, it will be probably as good as hopefully they've been, with the exception of a couple years ago. But they have pieces. And I mean, they're still retaining guys like Eddie Jackson, who's been one of, if not the best safety in the entire league. Okay, moving on. We got the Cleveland Browns. This is a team that I think is going to be nothing more than 500. Still don't trust Watson yet. I think Watson's going to be. I say Watson's going to be nothing more than average. He was awful last year, and while they do have pieces like Amari Cooper and David Njoku and Nick Chubb, I don't know how the Browns are going to do there on offense, and then their defense. They of course have a meh defense, even if they have playmakers like Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward. At number 19, we got the Tennessee Titans, another team that has a couple question marks on them. For the Titans, I'm curious to see how Hopkins will fit in with the offense, and how well is he going to do as their two? Yeah, how well? Yeah, how well their second year player, first round pick, I can't remember his name. Burks, there we go. I'll go Treylon Burks will be as their two. Because obviously Hopkins is your one, Burks will be your two, and then your three will be a bit interesting. And of course, you got Derrick Henry, who's absolutely fantastic. And then their O line will be interesting as well they develop. But their biggest problem there on offense is Tannehill. Will Tannehill be good, or will he just be eh? That's what it could be both. He might have a couple good games, but he also might have a couple bad games that they claim for Malik Willis or Will Levis. Because why not have one quarterback when you're going to have two in back-to-back years? At number 18, we got the Minnesota Vikings. For starters, I think their offense is going to be really good this year. I like Kirk Cousins. I like Justin Jefferson. I like Jordan Addison. I like Alexander Madison. I think that core is pretty solid. Their biggest question mark, though, is the defense. How much are they going to miss guys like Eric Kendricks and Anthony Barr? is if their defense struggles this year, they're gonna have a long season, no matter how good the offense is. Is this one of a good offense if your defense is gonna struggle? You need that good balance. Rather have a mediocre offense and a mediocre defense than a top three offense and a bottom three defense, or vice versa. Even if the league is leaning more toward the passing offense and this guy passing offense with the dual threat quarterback. But anyways, at number 17, we got Seattle Seahawks. This is a interesting team. I'm curious to see how they do. For their wide receivers, they have a great wide receiver core. They have a great offense, and then their defense could use. I do. I am curious to see how they do on defense. I think this is a team that shows balance on both sides. That could be that could be somewhere where it's like that for the Seahawks, where they don't have a fantastic offense, but they don't have they're not either both fantastic, but they're both not terrible. James, and Asante Samuel. But those four are pretty decent impacts, but they still have so many holes otherwise that they might struggle a bit, especially the run defense. I don't trust the run defense. If you're a team that just runs, that goes ground and pound the entire time, that could be a way to slow this team down, especially if they have, especially with guys like Justin Herbert in the offense. Like if their offense is putting up points and you need a way to slow down both sides, just when you're on defense, just when you're on offense, just ground and pound. I don't trust the run defense. I think if you just ground and pound, run the clock down, it limits the Chargers' offensive power while giving while giving your defense a lot of rest. I think the Chargers are going to struggle in the run defense this year. I do think Brandon Staley's a terrible head coach, and I do think he's a reason why this Chargers team is held back from the full potential. 15 is the Saints. This is another team that has a terrible head coach, but it shouldn't really matter as much for them because I do think they're better offensively. No, well, I think the Chargers are better offensively, but I think they're completely trump them in defense. I think Saints have the better defense. 14 against the Giants. Another team that I think will be pretty good this year. By the way, as the Saints win the division, Giants I think will be a wild card contender. I don't know if they're going to make a wild card, but they could possibly make it. Anyways, with the Giants, I need to see more than just out of 1 year success from Daniel Jones. I need to see if he can do it more consistently. I think he can do it more consistently, but if he doesn't, then that could be a big problem for the Giants. They spent so much for him. But if but Daniel Jones can show that he is a top tier quarterback, especially with and with improved weapons like Waller, then Giants will be a bit better. 13, we got the Steelers, another team that I think will be around the playoffs, will contend for the playoffs. I do like picking the offense. And of course, their defense is led by Tomlin and Watt and Cam Hayward is still a fantastic unit, even if I need to see more from their secondary. But I do think if everything clicks for them, I think the Steelers could be a pretty good team this year. So we got the Denver Broncos. This might come as a awkward because they were 5-12 last year. But I do think Russell Wilson will improve under Sean Payton. And they still have decent receiving options, even if guys like Courtland Sutton and Jared Judy and Tim Patrick are already injured, which is kind of annoying, but what are you going to do there? But if the receiving core stays healthy and Russell Wilson throws more touchdowns than bathrooms, then I think the Broncos will be a lot better, especially under Sean Payton, which is already a bigger upgrade over Nathaniel Hackett, who is awful. 11 is the Jets. Big if Hackett, this is where he ends up, and this is another team that was pretty bad last year, but they just got Aaron Rodgers. So obviously they should be improved a lot. I mean, a lot of Jets off losses last year were in close games. For example, that game where the Patriots won off of a punt return. If that And that was a game where they struggled offensively, mainly because Zach Wilson was awful that game. He threw nine pass completions over like 20 attempts. Like he was awful that game. And and of course he says he's not to blame for it, blames the wind, and then ends up getting benched the next week for Mike White. So I think Aaron Rodgers is an upgrade over both Zach Wilson and Mike White. And I already like their offense and defense, especially since they got Dalvin Cook. So their running back situation is Dalvin Cook, Brees Hall, and Michael Carter, which I actually think is pretty decent. And then, and of course, you still got Michael Carter on defense, the Phillips Williams brothers, and C.J. Mosley, and and then they just drafted Will McDonald, who I think will have a pretty good year. So, and of course, Sauce Gardner, who is one of, if not the best corner in football. Number 10, we got the Miami Dolphins. If Tua could stay healthy and if their O line shows some improvements, that's the biggest thing. Is if Tua gets injured again and he gets injured from the pocket and not from rushing the ball or holding it on too long, then it's going to show some bad looks on offense. This is just some bad looks on offense if Tua gets injured again. That's our biggest thing. Is Tua needs to stay healthy. If they got the pieces, they just need to hope he stays healthy. And of course, Jalen Ramsey's already out till December. But either way, their defense should be fine. Number 9, we have my Baltimore Ravens. This is easily the best receiving core Lamar Jackson has ever had. If he stays healthy, they should show a lot there. And then defensive side, they have Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen, which I think is a fantastic linebacking duo. And of course, their line consisting of Odafe Oweh, Davion Clowney, Roderick Washington, Jesse Madubuike, and Travis Jones and Michael Pierce. So pretty good line as well. And of course, hopefully Marlon Humphrey is back soon because they need him, or else they're going into week 1 with Rock Ya-Sin and Brandon Stephens, which ain't a great quarterback duo. I mean, that's pretty obvious. But that they also just signed Ronald Darby, who played with Philly, I believe. Played with Philly and Denver, who and I think he's pretty good. So yeah, I think the Ravens are at 9. Number 8, of course, we got the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott, who I think should be better this year with Brandon Cooks added to her team core with Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb. I think that should be pretty good. Of course, they had Tony Pollard starting at running back, and then their defense led by Dan Quinn is pretty good as well. I think they're one of the most balanced teams in the NFL, but balance doesn't necessarily mean they're good. It just means that they should be above average, and I think they will make the playoffs. But in Dallas fashion, they're gonna beat them that team in a wild card, only to get completely curb stomped by a team like the Eagles or 49ers in the divisional. At number 7, we got the Detroit Lions. This shouldn't be too self-explanatory. I mean, Dan Campbell's awesome. Dan Campbell's awesome. I like Jared Goff. And potential alone, the Lions should be fantastic this year. This should be one of their best years and that they've ever had. I like the receiving core with the Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameer, and then of course we got Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. So they got the offense, and then of course they just drafted Brian Branch, signed C.J. Gardner-Johnson, which should help their secondary improve a lot. At number 6, you got the Jaguars. They're a team that I think will show a lot of improvements from the last couple of years. I like Trevor Lawrence a lot. I think he is fantastic. As for the receivers, I like what I see from his receivers. Their biggest question mark might be their defense. I do think they have a couple pieces of holes on defense. I mean, Devon Walker might be decent, but we haven't seen much from him. And I want to see more from that secondary. I think their secondary is the biggest weakness for the Jaguars going into this season. Number 5, we got the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. That's pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, I think the Bills are pretty good this year. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and they should be a Super Bowl contenders yet again. The biggest question mark for them is can they get over the top? And heading into the top 4, we got the Bengals at 4. This is pretty easy as well. I don't know how much I hate it, how much I wanted to move them lower. I just can't ignore their offense with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Irv Smith, Joe Mixon, and a improved offensive line led by Orlando Brown, and of course last year's free agency pickups of Ted Karras and Alex Capa. So I said the Bengals are 4, 49ers coming in at 3. This is pretty easy as well. Well, they just traded away Trey Lance, which means Brock Purdy is the starter. I think Brock Purdy is fantastic. I like what I've seen from him this year as a Mr. Irrelevant. He was a pretty good pick. Yeah. And of course, their defense is one of the best in the entire league. The biggest question for them is A, can they get over the top? And B, how much is the Nick Bosa holdout going to cost them? Number 2 is the defending NFC champion Eagles. This is another team that's very self-explanatory. They have question marks on defense with the losses of C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Javon Hargraves. They replaced him pretty well with guys like, I think Terrell Edmonds will be pretty decent for them. And of course, they just drafted Jalen Carter with the pair up with Jordan Davis and Fletcher Cox on the line. Then they drafted Nolan Smith. is to add to a linebacking core with Brandon Graham and Hassan Reddick. And then of course we got Nakobe Dean and Akili Ringo. So I think the Philadelphia Bull Eagles will do pretty good this year. Or should I say Georgia Delphia Bull Eagles. And number one is the Kansas City Chiefs. Another pretty self-explanatory one, no matter how much you want to poke fun at their defense. You got Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Andy Reid. That should be their those three are still there. Fantastic. Yes, Chris Jones. Yes, the Chris Jones holdout might cost them in the beginning, but besides that, I think the Chiefs are number one once again. So yeah, that's my power rankings all the way from Arizona, Kansas City. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. Feel free to agree or disagree. Let me know in the comments below. Um, I hope to see you next time. Take care. Peace out.